Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, our Data Protection Masterclass with Dropsuite. Today's guests are Jamie DeVoe, who is Head of Channel for APAC at Dropsuite, and Luke Johnson, Chief Technology Officer at Visets. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Claire.
I'm Claire Walker. I'm the Marketing Manager at Manage Protect. We source and support the cloud solutions that MSPs need to service their SMB clients. We have a lot to get through today, so I will hand over to Jamie to take us through Dropsuite's business continuity approach, and then we will hand the stage over to Luke to talk about his experience with Dropsuite. Over to you, Jamie. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Claire. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to take a look at what we're doing at Dropsuite with Manage Protect as our distributor. I put Visits as the biggest logo on this page because they're probably the most important current MSP running in the market that's doing extremely well with the Dropsuite product and has been for a long time. So I'm really excited to get to the Q&A. But in the first part, what we're going to do is walk you through a little bit about Dropsuite. It is a lot of slides, so please try and pay attention. It's going to go through data pretty quickly because we want to get to the nitty gritty, which is a live demo of the product, which I have open and ready to go. I think that Claire had said, if you want to ask questions, I believe it's okay to unmute yourself, or if you want to just type it in the question box, we'll answer them as we go through the product. We don't want to get sidetracked too much. We want to be conscious of everybody's time, but that's how we'll kind of work everything. Is that correct, Claire?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, I forgot to say it. Yeah, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you could pop your questions in there, we'll get to them as we can.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Dropsuite. So the first thing that we want to address up front is, Dropsuite up until May 30 was a publicly traded company on the Australian Stock Exchange. We were recently acquired by NinjaOne RMM. So for anybody on the call that's leveraging that solution, I'm happy to discuss with you offline how that all looks. But the reality of the situation is that acquisition was purposefully based because Dropsuite has a large concentration of customers through the channel as well as through distribution like Manage Protect. So, the focus of our business as we go through this acquisition is to keep those partnerships intact and keep it so that we're in an open environment where customers who maybe aren't leveraging that RMM are able to purchase this product as either a new purchase, or obviously if you have a competitor that you're not currently happy with, or after today you're like, oh my god, these have a lot of more features than I expected, that you can most definitely reach out to Manage Protect and they can handle any net new opportunities. Anything outside of that, happy to discuss directly as well. So a little bit of background on us, just to make sure that you're aware that we didn't just come to light over the past year. Dropsuite's cloud backup and archiving solution for M365 and Google Workspace. Our key leg up in the industry is the archiving piece. We have three core pillars as a business, and that's really to be secure. That's number one. We are housing your and your customer data in our data centers, so we need a high level of compliancy. So we do have an AES 256 military grade encrypted environment, as well as all forms of modern authentication. We wanted to make it super easy to use. As an MSP, we realize you've got, in some cases, 65 plus vendors, right? So we don't want to make as much noise. We just want to work. We want to make sure that everything's running well and that it's really easy to implement on a regular basis. And then lastly is the powerful business tools. Now, I've just come off of 2 weeks of travel. And a large majority of MSPs are talking about compliancy and new needs for their customers and what they need in the future. And I'd like to, really highlight our archiving solution and compliancy as some really cool tools that you can reintroduce back into your customer base. We were established in 2012 as a website backup company, and then we started to do email backup, and then we actually worked to do full M365 Google Workspace around 2014, 2015, and we've actively been in that space. Currently, we're doing about 40 billion backups across 14 data centers. Those data centers are in 9 geographical locations. And just to give everybody some understanding, it's AWS, so it runs separately to the Microsoft environment so that you have a secondary place to restore in case of a disaster. As well as all of the data is based in Australia. So it's sovereignty. It does not leave our borders for duplication or any kind of things like that. So the nice thing is that you can tell your customers the data's here in Australia, if that's a requirement. We're supporting over 2 million active users. We're a channel-friendly company. We don't generally sell unless we're required to IT, internal IT. Our goal is to pass our business through the MSP channel, and that's really where our focus is. Of which over global last year, we grew at 37%. And here in APAC specifically, we grew by 76%. So just to give you some understanding that a large majority more MSPs are looking at our solution. Some of the reasons why they're looking at us, well, we've been very clearly noted as the leader in the space by software reviews. And why I like to bring up this website is specifically because it's MSP driven feedback. It's almost like the Reddit of a legit website. When you go out to market and you're looking at different vendors, you can put different vendors up against each other. And for the past 5 years, we've been voted as #1 by our customer base. And I'd say a large majority of that is they feel secure that our product is doing the right things by them from a security perspective. We have great local support as well as global support. The product's easy to use and set up. And really, the feedback I've gotten over the past 2 weeks is it just works. Like I don't have to deal with it too much. And that's a really great feedback for me being in the vendor space for as long as I have been. So you may go, for some of you on the call, you may be obviously doing backup, great, right? For some of you who maybe go, well, Microsoft's already doing it or Google is doing it. That's also okay. But clearly stated in both of their data clauses. It's very clear. In clause 6B, Microsoft states very clearly that if you're unable to retrieve data because of an outage or a mistaken deletion or a ransomware attack, they recommend using a third-party backup. And that's really where we fit. This isn't a knock on Microsoft. This is just clearly stating that Microsoft themselves say that you should be backing up that data in a secondary location. And that's what we provide. Also with Microsoft's ransomware attacks, they're not fully available to safeguard customers against those attacks. So in some situations, if that happens, you need a secondary restore point. We all know we shouldn't be paying the hackers. So in most cases, you want to set up a new Microsoft environment and restore back to that environment right away. And a lot of the same clauses fall in place with Google. These are multi-billion-dollar players in the space. They just can't guarantee everybody's data. So they obviously write these clauses specifically for you to sell to your customers a secondary solution over top of their Microsoft licenses. So when you come down to the essential 8 framework, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We have, prevent attack at the top level. We have limit extent of attack. And then we have obviously recovery in case everything's a disaster. And that's really where we fit in on the daily backups. But interesting enough, today, what we're discussing is kind of not only our backup solution, but a new product that we've just launched, which will safeguard you in some of the more higher level application hardening, as well as restricted admin purposes. And that really introduces our new Entra ID product, which we've just launched. I think most of you on the call know what Entra is. It's a part of your Microsoft licenses, and it's kind of where you house all the users, groups, permissions in the environment. So, it's the identity authentication policy, protection to secure employees' devices, and enterprise apps and resources. So we saw a large call from our larger MSPs saying, hey guys, like we need to do this. And so what we did was we dev'd this product over last year and we launched in Q2 this year here in Australia, Q4 in America. So why is it critical? I mean, to back up Entra, #1 thing to know is Microsoft doesn't back this up. Okay, so you go in, you set up a new environment for Microsoft, you add all the permissions, all the users in the environment. If something happens in that environment and there's a deletion or misconfiguration, or you mistakenly give access to a group of users, you need to prepare for those occurrences. So rather than going backwards and trying to find out where the problem is and resolve, with us, you can simply restore. So recoverability is preparatory process and functionally that enable you to return your services back to the prior function. So what we do is we basically take a backup at point of change and we retain that backup for as long as you're a partner. It's unlimited retention. So if there's ever a point where you need to go back to in the Entra ID, you can do that with our product. Now I am going to demo this, so I will show you the product in full. Today, it's very easy to set up. It's a snapshot search, as I said before, no audit log digging. It's a live comparison of what the backup change was, what the change was, and what the backup was. So I'll show you that in a moment. It is point in time restore, and it is a attribute level restore, relationship aware recovery. So these are the current features we have, all the way up to BitLocker keys, device in tune policies, so on and so forth, and then obviously all your users groups roles. And these are the new features that we're going to be bringing over the next 2 quarters. Okay. So I'll kind of stop there before I go into backup. We got some messaging directly that was pretty key for this call, so we wanted to bring it up. Basically, this is what happened in the States. In Ohio, a software developer became disgruntled about their access into an environment, and they basically went in and deleted users from the company's Entra. Okay, and permissions. So they went into the Active Directory database and made some changes. Now, they probably should have locked down the permissions of this individual, but they didn't, and it eventually ended up in a deletion of the environment. Now, this individual did get caught, and they were locked up to a 4-year, I think, case. But it just goes to show that these things are already happening in the space out there today. Claire, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, just it highlights the fact that it's not always an external attacker coming into your company. It's sometimes it's insider threats. It's accidents. Like this guy could have done this by mistake. It's inexperienced new people. So all of these things could happen to any of your clients or any of your organization. And you need to think practically, what would you do if you didn't have a backup? What would you do in that circumstance?
Correct. The other thing is MSPs are typically managing this for their customers. So 1 technician or 2 technicians having to do these setups across multiple different customer environments. Let's just be completely straightforward. We're people, we make mistakes. We add an extra L to Michelle's name. We do things just, by nature because we're doing repetitive work, which means leads to more issue. So the nice thing about this is that it's all locally backed up and it's backed up at point of change. So you can restore it if required. So getting into the backup products now, and again, I'm going to show you the interest piece just so everybody can see it live, but I do want to make sure we're cautious of time so that we get through everything properly. With the backup solution, as I said before, we have the regular backup that everybody knows and loves, incremental cloud to cloud. And then what our shining light is the archiver piece. And I spoke with a large majority of people over the past 2 weeks who are using a separate product for archiving, and then they're using a separate product for their regular backups. The nice thing about Dropsuite is we do that all through one centralized UI. Okay, so backup only is your regular run-of-the-mill incremental backup. We do a full backup of all the data when you deploy us out as it sits today, and then we go out at scheduled times and we do any newer change data. It's unlimited storage, unlimited retention, music to MSP's ears. They don't want to get hit with a big storage cost, which I heard a couple of times last week when I was at IT Nation. We charge a per user based price, so not a per product based price. So the per seat pricing is encompassing of all the things we're backing up. There are no minimum purchases with our product. So it is a pay-as-you-grow solution, which is really nice for a lot of MSPs. When you start us up, you only get billed for what you're actively backing up. There are no ingestion fees. So one of the key things that we get, and I do want to spend some time on this really quickly, but ingestion. So one of the biggest things we see is an MSP comes to us, they look at our product and they say, this is awesome, I love it, but I'm using a competitor and I have been using that competitor for 6 years. What do I do with my data, right? So we can ingest email data. If you can get it from the competitor, we can ingest it into Dropsuite to make it searchable. We also have a white glove service, which I'll talk to in the next couple of slides, which will talk a little bit more about how we can help you if you're with specific competitors. So just to keep everybody on the call who may be with a competitive solution today, we do have an opportunity to ingest that email data. We do Exchange or Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive, Groups, Teams, Private Chat, and your contacts, calendars, and tasks as part of that user license or seat license. We then do add all the advanced search, BI analytics, one-click restore download, and your 256-bit encryption is all keeping that data safe. If you choose the archiver solution, this is really product. Now, I do have MSPs that use this for all their customers, but archiving, think more of your professional services orgs, legal, financial, medical, government, defense. These kinds of organizations need a higher level of backup. So with our archiving solution, we actually do email at point of sent or receive. Okay, so we actually capture the email as soon as it leaves or as soon as it comes in, and we back it up and store it in our data center. It is immutable storage. We use worm storage, which is, write once, read many. So we do have that ability within our product. And then we add on a bunch of cool compliancy products, which I'll talk about more, but e-discovery, legal hold, retention period, and then your audit trail. So here's just a quick view. And again, we'll probably make these slides available to anybody after the call, but I just wanted to give you a good understanding of breadth from Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive, contacts, calendars, and tax groups, teams, what's included in those backups, and then similarly for the Google Workspace. Now, I understand Google Workspace isn't big in our world, but just in case any of you are on there dealing with, that one Google customer who's eventually going to move to Microsoft, we can definitely take care of their Google environment for the time being. The frequency in which we do our backups. So what we do is effectively, we do, when you deploy us, we'll do a full backup of everything as it sits. And then this incremental schedule happens after the completion of the initial backup. So for email, we do quite a lot more than our competitors. We do it actually 12 times a day for email, so every 2 hours. If you choose the archiver solution, as I said before, we'll do it immediately once the user sends or receives an email. We do OneDrive 1 time a day, SharePoint 3 times a day, Teams, Groups, and private chat if you require it 3 times a day, and then your contacts, calendars, and tasks, they're done 1 time per day. So basically, as soon as that completion of the initial backup happens, the incremental schedule that you see here falls into place. So 2 hours later, we do email, 8 hours later, we do SharePoint, so on and so forth. So I'm going to get into a demo, so you're going to see this live. So let's just talk really quickly about switching vendors. So about, I'd say 23, end of 2023, we were having a lot of people come to look at our solution. And if they had a competitive solution in tow, and namely those competitors, not to name them and knock them, by the way, but just because I need to be transparent about what we can do, we're seeing a large majority of customers wanting to move away from Datto's Backupify as well as Barracuda. And so their key concern was moving their data over to a new competitor. So what we started to do is look at ways that we could help the MSP go do that. And what we did was we developed technology to do that. So what we're able to do with our white glove services, if you want to get the data from your competitor and you want to give it to us, we'll do that for free. But if you want us to actively go into that environment, pull the data out, put it in an S3 bucket, and then move it into Dropsuite, we can also do that for those 2 competitors I discussed, Barracuda and Datto. And what we can do is we can actually automate that whole process for you to get you out of that contract quicker. So again, it's a lot here and there's more to unpack, but if anybody's interested in this after the call and they're looking at Manage Protect, we can help you with that data if you're with one of those 2 competitors. When it comes to security, and I'm going to go much more quicker here, just because we are a backup company, we've been running for a long time. You should feel safe with your data in our environment. When it comes to transferring the data over the wire, you and only you have strict access control. So we work in kind of like a godlike structure. We give access to the key point in the MSP, and then that individual will disperse access to individuals in the organization. We don't have access to view your data that is yours. It's strictly locked to your environment. It's a secure connection. It's always encrypted, and there's TLS and SSL layers built in. When it sits in our data center, it's a private cloud within AWS's data center. It's SSL encrypted, military grade AES 256. It is a complete firewall solution, but as you can all appreciate, we do have explicitly open ports because we need to transfer and access data. There is the possibility, if required, for an MSP to restrict specific IPs from accessing the data as well. And then we have DDoS mitigation techniques such as sync cookies, connection limiting, and obviously this is the bells around our perimeter so that if we do, we have basically the alarm whistles to go off if there's a coordinated attack against our server environment. Okay, so we're going to be notified well in advance if something is going wrong. Jumping into the demo. So basically, here's all of our data centers. This is readily accessible information on the internet. When an MSP, and I'll just maybe pause there, Claire, quick. Are there any questions thus far?
I did have one saying, can we share the slides? But you have addressed that
Oh,
one.
yeah, no problem. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna probably mess with my eyes a little bit. I've just got assigned glasses, and my eyes are adjusting to them. So if you see me blinking, I'm struggling a little bit. The initial dashboard as an MSP is your MSP dashboard. We call this the partner portal. Now, this is run-of-the-mill stuff, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we want to get into the nitty-gritty of the product. But basically, your initial dashboard shows you where your protection is, what seats you've used, and then any new organizations or unsubscribed organizations or accounts. Now, with Dropsuite, we look at the organization as the whole company. The account is the employees within that within that company, and these are all filtered via drop-downs. I'll skip over organizations and accounts for now. Pricing plans are like one of the things I hear the most is invoicing is a nightmare with a large majority of vendors. With us, what's really nice is you can actually create your own specific pricing plans and allocate them to the customers you're billing for very easy invoicing at the end of the month. Okay, so your customer won't see this data, but you'll be able to see exactly how many seats your customers are using, and obviously what the price margin is that you've built in there. And you can build as many pricing plans as you want. Support is really your overview of any kind of issues that we've encountered. So let's say we were unable to run a backup in a site for a specific reason. We're going to show it with the red markers that you see here. Now, the nice thing about our product, and I'll just skip over to integration. If you're with one of the vendors that you see here, you've got full integration into Dropsuite. So Autotask, ConnectWise, Halo, and SuperOps are the four that we have written integration with right now. So if you have those solutions, we can just integrate those notifications into your support queue. Otherwise, if you don't, then obviously you can manage those notifications by email. Okay, so you don't need to have someone watching this all day, but it is definitely where we're going to show you the alerts happening. I won't cover off billing because that'll be handled by Manage Protect. Your support usability will be covered by Manage Protect in the first level. Any technical issues just get expedited directly to our support team. Now, the support team is local here in Australia. We've got one tech, a high-level engineer in New South Wales, and then a entry level in Victoria. They'll handle probably 90% plus of your tickets. Other than that, we follow Mike, Mike and Michael, actually, they're both named Mike.
I just raised a ticket last week and they responded immediately. It was very impressive.
Yeah. So our average time to notification is 18 minutes. Globally, it's about 36 because you have bigger, different sites. But here locally in Australia, it's a very quick process. They're usually on top of things fairly quickly.
Yeah, we will, of course, address the majority of your concerns without needing to go to the Dropsuite people. The Manage Protect support team are extremely knowledgeable and can deal with most of your inquiries around their support.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, there's going to be two camps, right? The MSP camp is I've just hired a new tech. I want to train that individual on the product. And in that case, we've got a ton of wealth of resources for you. Or it's like the tech's not working properly. And in that case, we got you covered on both sides for Manage Protect and Dropsuite. The audit logs, this is again specifically for the owner. So this is for you to view your staff and what your techs are doing within the Dropsuite dashboard, who's logged in, what did they do when they logged in, who did they log into. And then we've got a resource tab, and this is really all of our kind of white papers, case studies, any kind of specific things that you need in relation to our product. We make that available for you to download. Now, I've already covered off integrations. The rest is just like user settings, group management, organization settings. So this is where the owner of the org is setting things like, let's say, organization. The first thing a lot of MSP owners will do is turn off the ability for their staff to be able to download customer data, right? You want a technician to be able to, like, if a customer requires that data, you want that technician to come to you to ask permission before they can do it. So in here, you can kind of tick those boxes to give accountability to the individuals who are going to be accessing our solution. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. So for the organizations tab, we have two tabs. The accounts tab is like someone calls in the 1300 number. Hey, I'm Jenny from this company. I need you to help me. I've just mistakenly deleted 50 emails, right? In the accounts tab, you can search across all of your organizations for that specific user. And that's really kind of for that quick specific case. Mostly you'll be kind of accessing orgs through your organization tab. So all of the customers that the MSP deals with will be located underneath here. You'll simply place an order with Manage Protect. They'll create your new organization, and then you'll be able to deploy our product. So because Entra is the smaller piece, I'm gonna demo that first. So the Access Entra portal, if you just click on that, what we'll do is we'll get moved into the customer's organization, okay? So I'm now in there, and it's really straightforward. As you see, when we click on the dashboard, we see all of our users, groups, permissions, roles, all the things we're backing up. And then when we click further into the users, what we see is the most recent change made by a user within the organization, as well as the first backup and the amount of snapshots and whether or not that Entra status is live. If you click into the specific users, you'll be able to see live versus backup value. If there's any mistakes made, for instance, an extra E was added to Adele's name here, you'd be able to see a red box here to see that there's a mistake between what's currently in the system and what's been backed up in the last backup. Again, this is unlimited retention, and we can refresh, restore, and download at any given time. So again, just to reiterate, MSPs are more thinking about this as a way to protect them. It's not really a sellable solution on top of what, like, if you can sell it, great. But really it's a fail safe to make sure if something bad happens, that you can recover quickly. We all know, if you've ever experienced a ransomware attack or having to set up a new customer environment, it is a painful situation depending on how large that company is. So we want to make sure that this is easy and capable for you. And as we add more features, it's definitely, I think, going to be something that's going to make a big impact. For the backup solution, we simply would access the email portal. And now I'm going to go into a live demo, so it will be set up with users. But in the initial instance, this will be a blank screen, which will basically just say add backup. You simply click add backup, and then you'll see the product lines that you're able to add here. They're all based on a setup wizard. So you just simply sign in with the customer's Microsoft credentials. And then what we'll do is retrieve the users within the environment through the initial retrieval list. Okay, so depending on the size of the customer site and the amount of sites they have for their SharePoint, it's going to take some time for that to load up. So while that's doing it, I'll kind of keep moving ahead. Well, there you go. It's already done it. So I can select all users and then just back those up. Or if there's specific users I want to exclude from the backup, maybe they're, field workers or something like that, or contract workers specifically, we can actually do that. So our product's not all or nothing. If you want to actually not back up specific individuals, although I would hope you wouldn't want to back up everybody, if there's specific reasons you don't need to back up an individual, you can do that. The cool product that we have is Auto Discover, Auto License. So our product, literally, if you want it to, you never really have to touch it. Auto Discover will automatically go find new M365 licenses with the environment. And if you choose auto licensing, we'll automatically deploy our product to those new users. Now, so this also works for exited users. So if a employee leaves, they shut down the M365 license, you're not aware of it, we'll just auto deactivate our licensing, and that ex-employee data will remain available to you free of charge as long as you need to search it, whether you move it to a shared mailbox or leave it in deactivated. The Active Directory search sync is obviously to make sure that if anybody changes their last name, that we make the change in Dropsuite as well. Once we've done that, we simply click the black button saying add backup, and that initial backup's going to run. Now, I have a lot of people ask me, is this like this thing's running in the background? We direct connect into Microsoft. You shouldn't experience any bandwidth issues. There's no requirement to run us at night or on the weekend. If you feel that you need to do that, that's fine. But we don't really see any big issues with our initial backup load. So there we go. So all of our users are now added. Now, if I want to search for a specific account, site, group, or shared drive, I can do that at the top level here. I can also drill down into the environment. So SharePoint, I've got all the sites here. And then if I want to go look for something specific, I can drill down right into the folder or file structure. Okay, now the search bar is always here if you require it, but at any time, if you need to kind of go digging for something through a folder file, you can do that with our product as well. So let's say I wanted to restore this document. Here is our one-click restore. So one-click restore gives you the ability to restore the most recent version backup or a previous version in case I wanted to go back to 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever the case is. Now, because we're a backup company, we realize customer may be purging data from their normal SharePoint on a regular basis. And not all times do we want to restore that SharePoint data back to the customer's SharePoint, right? So in some cases, they just want a copy of that invoice, whatever the case is. So you can download just the same if you give that access to your users. When it comes down to the user, so Adele here, she calls me up and she says, I just deleted a bunch of emails by mistake. Can you help me out? We have a top level search where we can search via the folder structure the individual set up, but in the instance, it'll be all messages and we can search there. If it was the most recent emails, we would select those emails and then simply restore them back to the inbox in the existing folder or a new folder that we create if it's a mass deletion. So that's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. We can also do point in time based restoration. So this would be, let's say, and I think we've all done this, right? But like you've mistakenly hovered a folder over another folder and you've done some things and you've moved some things around and your inbox is now different from what it was 2 hours ago. And you go, oh shoot, I don't know what happened with that folder. I don't know where I put it. I don't know what to do. With point in time, what you can do is you can actually go back and recreate the inbox for that user at a specific point in time. So if it was, an hour ago, everything was okay. I made a deletion and then I went to lunch and I came back and I can't find the things I need. We can go back to the point that the customer required so that we can repair that inbox as it was before. So that's a cool feature we brought on recently. We don't hold your data hostage like other companies. There's no requirement for you to raise a support ticket to gain access to a download. The owner will always have the capability to download an EML or PST format. We do have all defaults for you to download your SharePoint data, everything else as well. But mainly, if it was a user base, I need to download the inbox. I can do that on the fly. Migrations would be Adele is moving on. She's moved on to another company. She's a sales rep for me, and I've hired a new individual to come in, and I want to share specific emails with that new individual because they're taking over Adele's list of accounts or things like that. So if we needed to do a migration of data to a new user, we can do that as well. And then simply last is just your info on the individual user from a backup perspective, and then the deactivate tab. Now, deactivate would be if you know in advance that Adele's leaving and you want to deactivate that user. We'll auto do it if we can't call out, and you'll see a yellow tag here, or an orange tag, I should say. And that shows you that I can still access that individual's data. If you move that individual to a shared mailbox in the system, we just make the simple tick in our product. We don't bill for shared mailboxes. I'll pause there quickly. Any questions so far, Claire?
Yeah, I've got one.
Sure.
When you highlighted the portal earlier showing pricing in US dollars, can it be possibly shown in Australian dollars?
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Just because of the demo environment, it shows USD. Yeah. So everything in Australian will be in AUD. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you
So
for
it's
confirming
AUD.
that.
I can confirm it's
Uh-huh.
AUD for us.
Yeah, there we go. Luke can confirm it's all AUD.
Yeah.
Apologies. It's a demo. This actually, the funny thing is this demo environment is in Ireland. So it's not even in Australia for a weird reason. But
No.
yeah, that's why you're seeing some different currencies in there. Apologies. So yeah, 100% all billed in AUD. So not a problem there.
All right, good. There's one other one
All
that
right.
says, I see Dropsuite have PSA integration for tickets. Is there billing integration for ConnectWise and Halo PSA? Oh, I can answer that one actually. Managed Protect provides full billing integration for Halo PSA and ConnectWise for all of our products, and that's through our Converge portals. So yes,
Yeah.
short answer,
Yeah.
yes.
All good. Perfect. Thanks for answering that, Claire. All right. So let's get into, I've got two more points to go through and then we'll get into the fun Q&A. I think I'm a bit over time, but I want to nail this down really quickly. Advanced search is needle in a haystack. This is where I'm not searching per user. I want to search across the whole site, right? So I'm looking for something specific, an invoice that's been misplaced over 3 years ago, something like that. And I know specific criteria about what I'm looking for, and I can basically build a criteria search. Now, this is a one-time search. Okay, so it's really going to depend on the data you put in there. Email attachments is obviously the other one. So if I know it's a PDF invoice, I can just search via the PDF documents and I can just type the invoice number in. So it makes it really easy for you to go search that data. Now, with every customer, we do basically a footprint. So anything you or your staff do within that customer site will be tracked by our system. Any backups we do, any downloads, any restorations, any migrations will all be tracked within the system for an audit. One thing most MSPs control everything for their users, but we are getting more and more questions that, hey, the MD or someone, on site has asked permission to access this environment. We can do that. So you have the ability to grant permission to any of the users in the environment that require it. And we have up to 11 roles that you can assign the individual, from full admin, which means they'll have similar rights across their whole site and only their site. They won't be able to see your other customers. All the way down to just view and restore email. So if I wanted to give all the staff the capability to access Dropsuite and restore their own emails, we could do that. So that is a function capability for you. That covers off backup only. Everything you just saw there includes a backup only. The compliance archiver is probably where I want to spend some time, but I'm going to go through it quick anyway. E-discovery is, so think about this like from a lawyer perspective, right? They're dealing with multiple cases, multiple emails across multiple different customers, candidates, things like that. With e-discovery, what we can do is we can build creative search criteria for the customer, and we can save those searches. If you've ever tried to use it through Microsoft, it's very difficult to set up and work with. With us, it's just a simple creation of search and then save. When you save the search, all emails associated with that subject line, that specific keyword, or whatever you're looking for will get foldered into an environment. And that will not only catalog everything that we did in the past, but it'll continue to catalog any net new emails with that same criteria you've set up in the future. So this is a really cool feature that you can use to help those kinds of organizations that are doing multiple search. We can alert you on email. So we can alert if one individual in the organization is emailing someone else. I haven't found a better analogy for this, but like maybe a harassment situation. So HR specifically has reached out and said, we've had an issue with Jamie and Luke, and we want to be notified when Jamie emails Luke for any specific documentation, things like that. Now, for all intents and purposes, most MSPs aren't dealing with these kinds of issues, but it's nice to know that you've got some features that you can resell back to your customer. Tags are mainly specifically for GDPR. Okay. This is where I need to tag emails for deletion by a point in time, right? Because they contain customer data or some things like that. Now, we can use those over here in Australia, but in GDPR and DP regions like EMEA and India, respectively, they are required by law to delete customer emails by a specific point in time. So you can use the tag list for that usage and basically assign someone within the org to delete those emails. Retention policies. Now we can set multiple retention policies across the org. So, you could have the executive admin staff on a 3-month retention, and then you could have everybody else on a 5 or a 7-year, right? Mostly here in Australia, it's professional services org that are required to delete data after a period of time, whether that's 5 or 7 years. And us at Dropsuite, we recommend all you MSPs push a retention policy to your customer. They should be culling data after a 5 or a 7 year period or a 10-year period at most. So what we can do is we can create multiple retention periods, and we'll auto delete any data older than that period that you've set from the Dropsuite servers. Legal hold would be used in two specific key cases. I'm the MD of the business, and I say, I want everybody on a 7-year retention, but me, because I'm the owner, I want to keep everything since the beginning of time. You could put me in a legal hold, and that would trump any retention policy set. The other situation would be if like an employee has caused the business harm, malicious harm, and they're going to now take that individual to court. The first thing you should be doing as an MSP is moving that individual into a legal hold. Why? Because you're going to be required to give a lot of documentation over to the court system, and having it in a nice one localized place is going to make your life way better. The other thing that you'll typically be required to offer over is a audit log to the court or the lawyers. And what we do is we just make it simple and easy. So you simply would, choose the user you want to download it for, what you'd need from message file, user, and system. Basically click those, it downloads it to a CSV, you hand it over, you walk away. I hope nobody on the call has experienced this, but if anybody ever gets in a legal situation with one of their customers, the amount of documentation and audit required to hand over to court systems can take you days, weeks, if not months, right? So with us, we want to make that extremely easy for you so you can just walk away and let them deal with it. Now, I'll stop there. We are.
I was just going to say I have been involved in a couple of those, and some of them in cyber scenarios, but the lawyers have so much going on. They really actually do appreciate getting data back in a timely and usable manner. So it definitely goes a long way.
I love it, and that opens up the segue to you, anyways, Luke, for the Q&A with Claire and
probably also
myself.
Probably also keeps the customers' legal costs down just a little bit.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And like I said, I hope nobody ever has to deal with it. And if you have had to deal with it, you know what a pain in the butt it is. If you haven't had to deal with it, it can be really stressful because it comes out of the blue, and it's another point where you need to add a lot of, add information or give information to a third party that you can't necessarily charge for, right? Because you're doing the work. So it's really difficult to have that chat, and you don't want to hit the customer with a second problem if the CFO has just embezzled $1 million.
Yeah, and like I said, they're already getting billed in 6-minute blocks by the 4 lawyers, the 4 or 5 lawyers they have from that firm. So yeah,
that's it. So that's it. I went through everything fairly quickly. By all means, if anybody needs my time to go through like a one-to-one or has any more questions, I'll be available. But let's try to keep it on time for today's webinar, and I'll pass it back off to Claire, and I'll stick around for any Q&A that come my way.
Thank you, Jamie.
No problem.
Maybe we can close your screen down so we can see Luke a little bit better.
I love that. No problem at all.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you. I do appreciate you coming on to the webinar, Luke, and sharing your experience. I think it's super valuable I said when we were talking about this earlier, I said like, Jamie and I have limited credibility because we're kind of sales and marketing people, and you're a real MSP. So you've
real person. Yep.
Yeah, you're a real person.
Yeah.
So we'll start off by saying, so when you started using Dropsuite, what problem were you trying to solve? Why were you looking at it at all? And did you look at any alternatives?
Yeah, so this was probably a couple of key drivers while we were looking at a new solution. One was that over time we had ended up with a couple of different backup solutions. So we really want to consolidate. And some of that come from, organic client acquisition, where they have an existing solution that they invested in, they can't migrate away from. And then the other main driver was the main product that we were using, Backup 365, was being discontinued or sunsetted. That was the bulk of our backup customers, and so they were sort of the really 2 key drivers. We definitely looked at a whole kind of range of solutions. Jamie mentioned Backupify. As like a lot of people, we use some Kaseya products and ConnectWise products, so naturally we do look at their solutions as well. We did even explore do we go kind of the build? Don't necessarily go the buy. Go the build and look at Veeam and Wasabi and a few things like that. But yeah, obviously we set it on Dropsuite. So there were a couple of key reasons. Jamie sort of mentioned one before, was the pricing model is really, really easy, which doesn't sound important, but it certainly is for me. Not having a simple model where it's just a license per protected license mailbox, and that's it. Not having to worry about dealing with shared mailbox costs and other additional charges for data and things like that was one. Security is as every MSP is a huge focus of ours. And we certainly have quite stringent internal requirements around security. So things like auditing, I'm having really, really strong auditing around what activity is happening within our customers. And even simple things like, which should be simple, it's a bugbear of mine about vendors not having SSO into their platforms or charging a premium for SSO. It's a real annoyance of mine, because we want to be able to extend our identity management security posture to our critical tools or systems where we're housing customer data. So really quite important to us. Just sorry, really quick, the last one is that it's extensible. So we do and try to use automation where we can. So having that API available to us is really quite good too.
Well,
Yeah.
those are good reasons. And how did the migration go? Did it take long? Was it a lot of effort? What was your experience?
Yeah, so we on board. We had all of our clients onboarded within days, really, and getting their point in time backups starting to run. I can't quite recall how long it took to do initial backups. I mean, that was completely dependent on the customer and how much data they have, particularly in things like SharePoint and whatnot. But one of the big things for us was obviously retaining the legacy data. So depending on the client's requirements, around data retention, they obviously need to be keeping backups for 7 years or more, in some cases, 10 years. And so we had requirements from customers where they did not want to lose that backup data. So the ability to ingest emails was awesome, and obviously having Manage, Protect and Dropsuite working together to do that piece of work for us. Honestly, we were largely we were hands off in that process. We really didn't touch that part at all. The other data, so SharePoint and OneDrive, was a challenge for us, as it is with any in moving from any backup solution from one to another. So that certainly took some time with a bit of manual work and some scripting and things like that. But we were able to retain our customers' SharePoint OneDrive data as well.
Good. Glad we could make that a bit less painful.
Look, it's always one of those daunting things. It's one thing to move internal kind of tooling from one place to another, and that can even be daunting. But when it's dealing with real, tangible, customer data, it's just that's that next level. So, that peace of mind is really quite key.
And what about ease of use? Would you say it's how is it if you get a new support engineer on board, does it take long to teach them how to use it?
No, not really. Like we don't take very long at all to, I think, to train up people on a tool like Dropsuite. The UI as you would have seen in the demo, the UI is very easy to use. The search is really fast. So that is one of the real kind of positive things that comes out of our engineers, is that when they are looking for information or looking for a piece of data to restore, that sort of really fast enterprise search is really awesome. But yeah, no, in terms of new techs coming on board, they're able to sort of pick up the tool very, very quickly, and we try to get them into sessions that you guys run as well, even if it's one-on-ones and things like that, which is really awesome that you're also there to provide those.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
I don't annoy you too much for those.
Ha 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 ha. We yeah, we always get good feedback on the granularity of the search. It certainly saves time, and because going through search results is painful, you want to make them as small as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep.
So Jamie also mentioned earlier that a question he gets a fair bit is should you, or what are the pros and cons of giving your customers access to the Dropsuite portal? What's your position on that? Is it risky? Is it messy?
I mean, you can say it's risky. There's always an element of risk in providing privileged access to um, an application like this. But we certainly don't shy away from it. So, I mean, personally, I think it's a good thing that you're able to provide access. There's a few reasons why you need to. We do a lot of co-managed IT, so where the customer may have an internal IT team of varying levels, so we're augmenting them. And so particularly if they're handling the frontline support, sort of level 1 desktop support, they need to be able to restore files without needing to escalate that to us. So that's really quite key. But we also use it just to provide greater visibility. Now we do have customers where we are their IT department, but they do have an internal person responsible for IT, whether it's a CIO or an IT manager or even CFO or someone like that, and just providing them with that transparency around the tool and the performance of those backups is quite key. And look, we cover it off pretty simple. We cover it off with commercial risk. We cover that off with we have our privilege access process that we have, forms and things that we have customers complete. And then the other thing is training and enablement. So if they are going to be, it's very, if they are going to be actively restoring data and things like that, providing them with that training up front. I think those two things. And yeah,
Can I jump in there, Luke? Do you charge for that training and consulting
no,
for those customers?
no, no.
Okay. I did have some MSPs that charge for it. So if the customer asks for access and they need to go through a 1 hour training on Dropsuite, they're charging billable time for it. And they're obviously signing waivers with the customer that if something happens per click on the audit that they do, that they're not liable for it. But really, what I was discussing with like the e-discovery, for instance, those saved searches, right? Like they're really the true power of e-discovery, I think, is only realized as you start to give the customer access to those
Yeah,
things. So I can think of one where it wasn't legal, but it was a property management company here in Sydney. The MSP asked me to pitch to them directly e-discovery. And why they wanted it and why they viewed it as such an awesome situation was they had multiple properties that they managed across Sydney, and basically all their emails were tied to the subject line being the address. So if they were, if they were assigning an electrician to go on site, if they were, if there's anything specific in relation to that site, it was all channeled to that subject line. So they could basically create an e-discovery, multiple searches across the properties they manage, and all the emails would allocate to that specific folder for easy search. And so, they wanted access to the e-discovery because they wanted to be able to view those emails and be able to search them not in their normal inbox, in a secondary location. So, I agree with you. The nice thing about us is, as I said too, just to add to that, is we give you 11 different layers of role. So if you don't want to give someone full admin access because they don't require it, you can lock them down to, a viewer or reviewer, whatever the case is as well.
yeah. And look, we have customers, say in financial services, where they do have internal, risk officers and compliance officers. So that's another use case. And they are, I mean, extending beyond Dropsuite, those people also have access to things like insider risk management in Purview, for example, because it it quickly becomes not, although it's an IT tool, it's not an IT function. It quickly, moves away from being technically an IT function to more of a business operation function to, dive into an incident like someone, harassing someone else on Teams or, sending an email or whatever it might be. So
You probably also, there are probably clients where you just No, just no. You can't have access.
I think the vast majority of MSPs, to be fair, but we're getting into such unique customer environments that and customers are smart, right? Like they're actually quite switched on compared to how they were maybe 10 years ago when they just that my IT guy handles that. Like
Yeah.
they're asking more and more questions in today's world,
Yep.
and we got to be more transparent, I believe. And I think Luke totally agrees on this because it sounds like he's got a lot of customers in the same boat. We got to be more transparent in what we're using it, why we're using it, and what are the advantages to the customer outside of it's just an cloud backup that sits there in case anything happens bad where you delete it. There's so many more features with our archiving that potentially can be useful for the customer depending on what industry they're in. But again,
Mm.
you're right, Claire. You probably are gonna don't let them touch it because they're gonna make more work for me.
I'm not saying most. I'm saying there's usually a troublesome minority. So
Correct. They just
No,
want access.
we
Yeah,
love our customers.
100%.
this is a safe space. This is the last question for me. So please, if you've joined us and you do have a question for either Luke or Jamie, please pop it in the Q&A and I will attempt to pass it on in a coherent way. What lessons would you share with other MSP? Any lessons learned in deploying and using Dropsuite that you would want to share with other MSPs?
Yeah, good one. We Jamie touched on it before around automatic backups. So I mean, our standard and default approach is that we auto license and auto backup all of our customers. That obviously needs to translate into rigid process that we don't just go and create test accounts and do some other stuff without thinking about the impact on systems like this. But we do have customers where there are some legitimate reasons where we may not be doing that. I'll give one example is we've got a couple of nonprofits and education customers where, let's take the education customer as an example. They're wanting to protect their faculty and staff data, but the student data they actually don't want to back up. So in that case, we target a specific group and basically exclude everyone else. So with that, obviously, you have to be mindful that in your onboarding and offboarding processes that you are making sure that your user, your new staff member is being backed up, so they are in the correct group and things like that. It's just something to be mindful of. And you don't go and add people to groups that you shouldn't be, and therefore get charged. And well, they ended up in backups when they don't really need to be. So that's probably one thing we've seen.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have a question for you. I think this is for you, Jamie. With the restoring time that you mentioned, are any existing emails in the inbox left in the inbox? So I guess that means, what does that mean? If I've got like 7 open emails and then I restore from September, or what is it now? August the 1st, do my 7 emails stay there plus I get all of August the 1st, or do they go and I only get what was there on August the 1st?
That's a really good question. The way I answer it is you would be recreating at the point in time. So basically any emails for that initial time, you'd need to add those back to the inbox from a restore point if that was required. Luke, can you confirm that? Have you used the point in time yet?
I'm just trying to think actually. I mean, our techs definitely have used point in time.
Yeah.
Because I've heard them talking about it, but I can't.
I believe that's the case. So if I say, hey, I want to go back and recreate my inbox as it was last Friday, then you will need to then go back because you are going back to a point in time. So any of the data that's been backed up by us in that lead time of 5 days or whatever the case is, you would need to restore that back into the inbox because you are effectively recreating. But that is actually a good question of whether or not we can just restore. So I'm happy to come back on that, Claire, if you take note from the individual who asked that question. I can get an answer, but I'm pretty sure you have to restore back anything that wasn't covered in that initial. But I'll check on that and see if there's a way around that to just make sure that everything's there when you go back to a point in time.
Good stuff. All right, well, we're pretty much on, look, that we're bang on time. Thank you both so much.
Awesome.
I think everyone's really gotten a lot out of this session, and it's certainly been very useful to me. So thank you so much. For anyone who's watching, if you do come up with any questions, we're like, oh, I should have asked this, please do send them through to us at info@manageprotect.com. We'll do our best to answer. And if you want any training, like Luke mentioned, or any information about Dropsuite, Backup, Archive, Entra, any of those things that we talked about, please reach out. We're very happy to talk to you at any time. Any last final words before we go?
Just want to thank everybody, especially Luke, for coming today. I know in a world where you're taking care of customers, to take an hour out and do learning and stuff like that is hard. So hear me rap on for an hour and talk about product. I hope you got something out of today, or maybe are thinking about backup differently to how you sell it. And I just want to thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Both. All
Thanks,
right. Have
Dave.
a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.